Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order as far as for the September work session for the Jackson County Board of Education. Hard to believe it's September already, but it is. And I know that Dr. Howard, you have a lot of things that you want to cover tonight before we head over to the parent advisory meeting, so I'll turn it over to you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Our first order of business is that we're scheduled for a 6 o'clock budget and millage hearing, and so that's been advertised in our local paper as well as the website. And so we don't have anyone here that I'm aware of that has any questions, but I'm going to ask Ms. Dodge if you'll speak just generally to our recommendation, and that will be public for those that are watching. And then we have another hearing on Monday at our meeting at West Jackson Middle School, which will be at 6:30, and then we have our final hearing for our budget as well as setting the millage rate on Friday, September 15th, which is next Friday at 7:30 a.m. and that will be here. So there's 3 opportunities for the community to provide us feedback or ask any questions. But Ms. Dodge, would you speak briefly to what they have in their packet? And the board does have the 5-year history for our millage as well as the a budget based on what we're recommending in terms of our millage rate.
Yes, and we of course are recommending to keep the millage rate at 19.131, the current rate. But like we've discussed before, because it does increase the taxes that we will collect, we have to advertise it to the public as an increase in taxes, even though we are not recommending an increase in the actual millage rate.
Is that because of the property value increase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And we did analyze it both at the rollback rate and at our current rate, and with our current budget and our additional staffing needs because of the growth, that is why we recommended to keep it at the 19.131.
Okay.
Other conversations that we've had, I think, that are just points of interest going into next year. We are already aware of a significant increase in TRS. Our projection, just based on our existing staff, that increase would equate to about $2.2 million to our general employee cost. So we've built our fund balance to a good place, and when we get to our conversation about our recent budget updates, then you'll be able to see that. So we want to be able to sustain this fund balance that we've worked very hard to get to.
Absolutely, and be able to also be proactive about things that we know are coming in the future. Right. And instead of rolling it back and then possibly having to visit a significant increase next year to help balance that known fixed cost, we'd rather just leave it as it is and
proceed. That's right. So with that being said, I think we can proceed. Folks are aware of other hearing opportunities if they choose to come and address the board and the administration here, and we'll leave that open. The next 2 items I have are just quick reminders that the board is open for GSBA December 1st and 2nd. That will be one of our whole board trainings. And then just a reminder that we do have our meeting at West Jackson Middle School on Monday evening at 6:30, and we're looking forward to that. Just as a side note, I think all of us have had many parts of our country in our thoughts and prayers. The weather on Monday is difficult to predict. I think we had some email communications going on among Northeast Georgia RESA superintendents talking about how we're planning to manage it on Monday. Right now, everyone is just communicating with Peachtree City's, the National Weather Service, and we feel like we're going to be fine, but we'll watch it very closely. It's just too much to predict right now. The primary impact to us is likely wind, and Mr. Farmer and I have spoken, in terms of transportation and transporting kids, that is a concern, and we'll just have to watch it. There's just no way to know definitively. So.
About 30 minutes ago, that kind of changed. They're saying it's going to waver a little bit more to the west.
Okay.
So it may be right up through Atlanta, and we catch a little bit of the east side. So it's still going back and forth on their predictions.
Okay. Well, we've got some pretty good communications in place now. If something should change over the weekend and we feel like we need to either have a delayed start or an early release, then we'll use our Infinite Campus portal, Facebook, and all the other communication tools that we have. But right now, the best that we can do is monitor. And I do just want to speak to how many things Jackson County Schools leaders, both at the school level as well as the district level, implemented in terms of changes this year. I want to say a very special thank you. I know it has been in some ways very challenging. And so we have a parent advisory advisory committee meeting after this meeting at 7 o'clock. So we've got 3 schools that have committed to presenting tonight and promised that they will be concise and keep it to 5 to 8 minutes so we can get over to Gordon Street by 7. But I do want to thank our community for their patience. We've had some implementation challenges that we recognize, and so we're going to talk about that at our advisory council. Everything from accommodating with some staff changes that we've had to make with growth, as well as transportation, and we know that that's been a challenge. So we'll talk about those with our advisory committee this evening. But the bright side is we have had some remarkable learning experiences that we've been able to experience, and that will be the highlight of our meeting tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nicholson, and let's talk a little bit about our school performances.
Absolutely. So most of what I'm going to share this evening will be at the Parent Advisory Council. So that is all I'm going to share at this point. And I'm going to turn it over, I believe, first to Mr. Dixon at East Jackson County Comprehensive High School, and he's going to talk to us about his performance review. So Mr. Dixon, if you don't mind coming up to the front.
Mr. Dixon has provided for you a handout that has some data on it that he'll speak to.
Just a little spreadsheet. Won't take long. What I wanted to talk to you a little bit about was the past 3 years of EOC scores. And what we put down on these scores were our level 3s and 4s, because frankly, that's where we want to be. We don't want 1s and 2s, so we put 3s and 4s. And what I'm here to report to you is that across the board, we've increased essentially in every area with the exception of algebra and U.S. history. And what we've done to fix that, very frankly, is to, I retooled the algebra team. It's a different look with different personnel this year. It's going to emulate the geometry team, of which I'll talk a little bit about in just a few minutes. We're going to try to get that part of mathematics back on track. We're not that far, but we've got some work to do. U.S. history, we had a slide last year. I retooled it as well. We got a new teacher in there, and we expect and feel very comfortable about how we're re-examining and reigniting that, if you will, from a score standpoint. Some of the accolades that I probably need to talk about from a score standpoint is geometry is just simply doing well. It's the 23rd best score in the state of Georgia with regard to EOC, and I got to tell y'all, when you factor in all the metro schools of such, that's pretty impressive. I expected improvement, but I certainly didn't expect it that well, and it simply has been a model for what we do with all our PLCs throughout the school. And we've had learning opportunities from them, and that's how we hope to see algebra scores and other scores. But the rest of the scores have been generally trending upward, and we're happy with that. We're going to continue that trend, we hope. I just did some very simple mathematics to figure out the graduation rate for next year, and I think this is fairly accurate. I won't know till next month probably, but we think that's 95.6%. That would be up 0.3 of a point, and I'll add that that includes 6 GAA kids. For those of you that understand that avenue, if you will. So it's pretty good,
Awesome.
So
It's fantastic.
we had a 50% reduction in unexcused absences due to our attendance policy that we implemented. We don't after 7 unexcused absences, we simply take credit away. And we do allow for makeups in the afternoons. We have a Monday through Thursday makeup session every single afternoon for an hour, so you can make it hour for hour. But the truth is that we have an absolute intention of you come to school. It's very simple. If you come to school, you get a good chance to do well. It's not rocket science. I talked about the 23rd highest. Should have brought my glasses too. 50%. This is really a good number that has gone up dramatically in the 5 years that I've been here. 50% of our 180 grads were accepted to either 4 or 2-year schools. 22 of them accepted to Georgia last year. So we're very proud of that. That's the best we've ever done. And we just got our ACT scores. In fact, I looked at them Tuesday. Our ACT scores are up across the board, completely up by a couple of points in some areas, math being one of them. Reading was up a full point, so that's good as well. Our SIP is focused very simple on numeracy, literacy, and attendance. And that's the same thing that we did last year. We wanted to add to it and continue some improvement. We got a ways to go, make no mistake, but we feel like we're heading in the appropriate direction. Questions or thoughts, comments? Sorry, it's very simplistic with regard to the way it looked, but that's kind of how I do business.
Looks good, yeah.
All right.
Is there any clear-cut idea as far as why, as far as with the algebra, is it just something, a new curriculum, or something that just
That's a
between
great
the
question.
eyes?
It's a great question. Coordinate algebra just went away. New algebra just came in. As another curriculum change, but we like this one because we think this is going to help us. Same thing happened with geometry, but honestly, if you want my real gut tells me that our personnel that we have in there now understand the analytical end of what kids are having to be tested on these days. And if we embrace that, instead of, our kids could do quadratic equations last year and you get them on the board and they could do that, but now when you have to write about it and then discern it, so we're looking a little bit more on how we assess kids and do things of that nature, and I think that will be the answer. That's at least my hope. That's what we're thinking.
I've heard the same thing even down into the elementary, writing about math and how you get there. It's just a little difficult.
Well, I'm
show you how
glad
to do it, but write about it's a little difficult.
Quite frankly, I'm glad I'm not doing math these days.
Thanks.
Mr.
All
Jackson,
right.
thank you very much.
Thank you
We're
very much.
extremely proud of the progress of East High and appreciate your leadership.
Thank you.
All right, I believe next we're going to have Dr. Jones from Jackson County Comprehensive High School.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about our progress as well. As Mr. Dixon alluded to, a lot of school improvement is a process and it takes time of sustained effort, and so I'm very proud of the work that our staff and our kids have done over the past 4 years. And so I want to share a little bit with you tonight about kind of the highlights and then some of the new things that we're going to try to address, some areas that are not as good as we'd like them to be. So as Mr. Dixon said, basically the way that milestone scores are looked upon is, passing is a 2, 3, or 4, but we prefer to be in that 3 or 4 category. The area that we feel strongest in right now is economics. 93% of our kids are in that passing range, but more importantly, 75% of our kids are in that 3 and 4 range, which is a really good mark. Just to kind of as a point of reference, a couple years ago we were only at 43%, so we've grown tremendously in that area, and we're very proud of our students in those courses. Those tend to be our seniors, and so they're kind of going out on a strong note, and largely any improvement method really is driven by the teachers. And the teachers make the difference. I mean, you can try all kinds of curriculum, you can try all kinds of strategies, but ultimately it's about the approach that the teachers take and the care that they give to the kids, and that's one of the things in economics. We had a really dynamic pairing there. They're very different styles, but similar results. One uses all kinds of simulations and real world kinds of applications. The other one is more of a Socratic circle, kind of let's talk about these issues with seniors. That's an awesome thing to be able to do because they're so mature, they understand a lot of those issues by that point. So really, it's a hats off to them. They're the ones that really have driven that improvement and really serve as a model for a lot of our other programs. And we also have very high achievement in the AP level economics as well. 70% of our students scored a 3, 4, or 5, which is where they can earn college credit. So it's at both levels, not only the on-level economics, but also the highest level economics. So really performing well there. I guess an area in which we need to improve is also math and Algebra 1, where those are our 9th graders. And we've seen some growth there. It's just not where we want it to be. 78% of our students were in that passing range, which is good, but only 31% of those are in that 3 to 4 range. So it's really just trying to get those kids that are barely scraping by up to that next level. And our teachers have really devoted themselves to improving that this year, and I've got some early results I wanted to share with you from that. They've really embraced a new approach to math. You mentioned writing, and really that gets back to getting at those higher level thinking skills. And so they've taken a look at what's called the Mathematics Vision Project, or the MVP approach. And they've really embraced that. And at first our kids were kind of struggling with that, going, oh, this is a little uncomfortable. But they took their first test last week, and 86% passed. Which is amazing for the first test in any level. And so we're very excited again about that. So that's one thing that we've really tried to do with our ninth graders. We're also doing what we're calling hybrid classes, which basically are a mix of in front of your teacher and online. They're with the teacher every day, but they're largely working at their own pace. You've probably heard a lot about personalized learning and trying to meet the kids where they are. And so the students that we've identified really that have struggled traditionally with math, either in middle school or with us, we've tried to approach them in a different kind of way, and we've got good early results there as well. Some of the kids are actually through 3 units already, whereas our normal math are only through 1. So, and then there's some that are still in that first unit, but they're chugging away at it, and they're trying to master that content before they move on. So that's a different approach, but again, it's really done well. And then the other thing that we're doing in math and in algebra in particular is looking at a half credit model. It's awarding a half credit in December. And the reason why we wanted to do that is to really create a sense of urgency and be able to address those deficiencies earlier on. Sometimes in those year-long classes, especially with the younger students, they don't realize that if you wait until April to start really chugging away at it, it's too late. And so I think that just the feel, if you walk into our math classes now, you can feel a difference. And a lot of times, that plays out in the number, and a lot of times it doesn't. In this case, I think it's both. You can feel it if you go in there, but you also are seeing it in those first results. So we're excited about that. Also want to brag a little bit about our American Lit EOC. That's our 11th grade group. Literacy across the board really has been a major thrust for us. And it's starting to show out in our data. Again, 95% of our students scored in that passing range of 2, 3, and 4, and 67% or in that 3 or 4 range. That's up 20% from the year before, which is a big jump for 1 year. And we also got our ACT results, and really we're looking at historic highs there. 74% of our students met the college readiness benchmark, which is the highest that I can find in school history. Just to give you an idea, the national average is 61%, so we're well over that. And that doesn't just happen in the English classroom. We've really devoted ourselves to focusing on literacy in every class. And I think that's why we're starting to see some of the gains, because our language arts teachers are doing a great job, but it takes more than that. And so they're writing and reading in every class, including PE, weight training. They did a DBQ in weight training. As weird as that may sound, our students know what a DBQ is now. And so, and our teachers are getting much better at integrating that in meaningful ways. So I think that if you, if you continue down that path, we're going to continue to see that growth. So we're excited about that. And again, in terms of the area of greatest need as far as growth, it's still algebra. So that kind of is both on the achievement side and the growth side. It's just not growing as quickly as we'd like it to. So as I mentioned, we're already trying some different approaches with that. Our school improvement goals are there at the bottom. I'll let you kind of look at those. The first 3 really are continuations of our goals from previous years. I think they align with our strategic vision and our strategic plan. And really it captures all of our students. The new goal for us this year really is attacking attendance and trying to get students there more often, because the more often they're there, the more they're going to learn, and the higher levels they're going to learn. So we've already, if you check out the Twitter feed, you'll see some perfect attendance awards that we gave this year, this week, for kids that were here every day. So we appreciate them and the families making sure that they're at school. But I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And again, I just want to thank you all for your support. We couldn't do it without the support of the board and the superintendent, so appreciate that.
Good job. Very good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. And as Dr. Jones is going back, I want to say a very special thank you to both of those gentlemen. All of our schools are critically important, but the partnership and the work that they are willing to do together on behalf of all Jackson County students, we have the highest number of students taking the ACT last year, as well as 1.5 points above highest average we've ever had. So they're having tremendous impact on our leadership at the high school, the academic experiences our kids are having, and as they both acknowledged, we're not there everywhere, but we are progressing in the right direction, and they work very hard at leading our kids in the right direction. So thank you both, gentlemen. We're grateful for that work, very grateful. And we have a birthday
girl.
presentation.
I mean, we have somebody who is so devoted that on their birthday they would like to come present their school.
She actually has to come today.
So our last but certainly not least is Risa Brookshire and Allison Pennington from South Jackson Elementary School. I feel like we should sing happy birthday to them.
You go right ahead, Mr. Nicholson.
Again, thank you for allowing us to share our highlights and areas that we're working on to get even better at South Jackson. We do want to share our highlights, but we want you to understand that we're not where we want to be. There's still much room for growth, and we're not happy until every student in that building is meeting their growth potential. So while we're sharing these highlights, we still know we have lots of work to do. Last year, based on milestone scores, we had 71% of our 5th grade students reading at or above the grade level, as compared to the state rate of 70%. In English language arts for 4th grade, we had 43% scoring at level 3 and 4. And just like Dr. Jones and Mr. Dixon said, we only looked at level 3 and 4 because that's the area we expect. 2 is considered passing, but we want our students scoring levels 3 and 4. So we were 1% above the state in that area. In our 4th grade math, we had 46% scoring on level 3 or 4 as compared to 45% at the state level. And our 5th grade science, we had 40%, which is not at all where we want to be, scoring level 3 and 4, but as compared to the state at 39 and the system at 37%. So while we're happy to have that score, it's still not at all where we would like to be. So what do we attribute that to? Our reading, we think a large portion of that is our refocus on the 4 blocks with Peggy Terrell and language arts training and writing. Also, our Conquest of the Realm reading incentive has been a big part of that success. We're actually having our kickoff for the new Conquest of the Realm tomorrow morning at our Friday morning celebration. So if you don't have plans at 7:30 in the morning, you can always join us. Our teachers realized once we did not have accelerated reader that we needed to do something to motivate our students to read. So they spent lots of time 2 years ago planning this, and students are divided in kingdoms and they can earn hexagons. It's really just an incentive to get them to read, but we recognize those students on a weekly basis. And also, we feel like the reading is contributed to specific feedback and commentary we gave through TEKS. And once we saw a problem, I would start doing the TEKS, and Ms. Pennington would spend time coaching those teachers, and we did see growth there. In the area of writing, Ms. Lush led a 3rd through 5th PLC for our teachers, and we found the assessments that the system did through the Georgia Center for Assessment to be beneficial to us. In the area of math, we had an 80-minute math block and a commitment to CGI and number talks, and our teachers participated in the discourse PLC with Marty Hutchins.
And then moving to looking at our greatest area of need, when we were looking at our data, we noticed that our 3rd grade overall scored lower than the state and the system in reading, ELA, and math. So we noticed we had a discrepancy in 3rd grade. And along with that, we noticed reading in 4th grade. 5th grade reading was a celebration, but 4th grade reading, they were scoring below the state and the system. So we needed to do something to address that problem as well. And then we also noticed that the narrative writing scores based on our GCA assessments in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade were not as high as we would like them to be. So to address these needs, we've done some changing with our schedule. So this year we moved our 3rd graders out of team situations into self-contained classrooms. So they're with one teacher all day with the exception of reading when they move to levels that meet their needs. We've provided professional development with our 3rd grade teachers in both math and ELA. We have Katie Warwick coming in and working with our teachers. She was actually there yesterday working with 3rd grade. And then we've also worked with them on the 4 blocks implementation with guided reading as well. We have added a Foundations intervention group. Foundations is used primarily in K2 for phonics, but we actually have a 3rd grade group of students that works with Foundations as an intervention, where we're trying to fill those holes that they missed as they were coming through. We've tried to focus more on narrative writing in the classroom. We've also added direct writing instruction. One thing that we realized after getting feedback from our teachers is that we were doing a good job of integrating, but we had lost some of the direct writing instruction. So we've moved back to making sure that we would both integrate and implement direct writing instruction. Our current schedule, we've done something really, I think is pretty great with the schedule this year, is in K2, we've implemented 2 math blocks, one for CGI instruction and one for guided math. So our K2 students have time to get both CGI and guided math every day. And those teachers are using those blocks to move back and forth between math discourse and higher level thinking, as well as guided math groups, so to allow students to work at their level. In 3.5, we implemented a long block for WIN, which stands for What I Need, where kids are getting acceleration and remediation in reading and math, where in K2, they have 45 minutes of that for ELA and 30 minutes of that for math. So that's extra in addition to what they get during their regular instruction. We've added an additional intervention specialist to help us in 3, 4, and 5, because our needs were, we realized we had needs that needed to be addressed, and one person trying to do K5 was too much. So now we have 2 people, one K2, one 3-5, and we've seen a lot of success with that. We revamped the way we use our instructional aides. Before, they were working with just certain groups of teachers. This year we intentionally scheduled them with intervention groups and to support guided reading and ELA. So they have an intentional schedule of where they go and what their responsibilities are. We've implemented data teams twice a month. Risa and I are actually attending a class at Risa to learn more about data ourselves, so we can become stronger in leading our teachers in data analysis, and we're working closely with Troy at the district level to strengthen that as well. And of course, attendance is an issue at South Jackson, so that's been a big initiative for us and our teachers to try and find ways to motivate our students. And all of our teachers have spent time thinking about how they can motivate their students at the classroom level, and then we're working at motivating students at the building level. And last but not least, to increase technology and integration into our classroom instruction, our teachers attend a PLC with Lisa Wilbanks, our media specialist, once a month, where she works with them on integrating little pieces of technology. And she just finished a class earlier this month, and we've already seen an increase in the technology being used in the classroom that's meaningful and engaging for students. So moving to growth, our school's greatest area of growth, we said that based on the results of the MAP assessment, we saw higher growth in reading than we did in math. Our reading scores were not where we want them, but they did grow at a higher level than our math scores did, so we were pleased to see that. And we also saw that in English language arts in the 4th and 5th grade milestone scores. And we attribute that success back to, like we said before, to the implementation of 4 blocks and the intentional scheduling of guided reading and direct writing instruction, as well as our conquest of the round reading game.
All right, so what are our areas that we want to grow in for growth? Our 2nd graders overall scored lower or showed less growth than any other grades. And then all of our grades showed less growth in math than they did in reading, with the exception of 4th grade. So what are we doing? Allison has really covered, some of the strategies are listed again, but everything we're doing to work on achievement is also what we're doing to increase the growth. And I want to thank the board for the support you've given us with Troy Johnson and having him come out and support us. He came to our leadership retreat this summer, so we started looking at our data then and digging into that at that time to see what we needed to do to make improvements this school year. And also Dr. Warwick, like Allison said, she was there yesterday. That was her 3rd time in our building this year. And the teachers appreciate the feedback she's giving them and the modeling. And we've already seen changes in classroom instruction based on the feedback she's given them. So we appreciate that support.
That's great.
And again, we know we have lots of room for growth. This is my 3rd year back at South Jackson, and we really feel like we are making progress, but we know, like they said, it won't happen overnight. That's what we would like, but we hope to share even more results that are better with you next year. You have any questions?
Very good. Thank y'all so much. Excellent job. South Jack, as you all know, we probably need to discuss a school visit sometime this year, just to visit our schools. It's been a while since we've done that, but each of our schools have their very own culture, and both high schools have an outstanding culture. They're different communities, different kids, and South Jackson has its very own culture, and it is quite an embracing place, and there's a lot of fun, and I appreciate the leadership that we have at South Jackson. So, and they do have quite a few of our shared services classrooms. I think we're at 6 now, is that correct? So there's 6 self-contained special ed classrooms there that also require a significant amount of support, and so thank you for what you do to really serve the whole district in that modality. So very good. All right, they did pretty good. We're fine. I think they did a fantastic job. Thank y'all so much for sharing in your time, and you're welcome to stay, but you've got high school commitments. I'm sure it's a JV night, and you have a birthday, so you are welcome to stay, but if you so choose, you feel free to leave at whatever time is convenient for you. Thank y'all very much. Just to have respect for time, Dr. Blankenship, I'll turn it right over to you for personnel.
Okay. So our first topic under human resources this month is our personnel list, and you'll see that we have quite a few new hires for consideration. Most of those are the paraprofessional positions that we added for kindergarten at West Jackson Elementary. We have some bus drivers, as we discussed last month, the need to hire additional bus drivers. So you'll see those on there, as well as the 2 certified positions at East Elementary that we were in the process of filling last month. So those are on there. We do have 1 retirement, and we're in the process of interviewing for that position. So hopefully we will have that filled soon. And then we have a couple of transfers and a few resignations. So that is there for your consideration. Next item is to just remind or let the board know that we have open enrollment coming up for our benefits. That'll be October 16th through November 3rd this year. We do have a 3-week window rather than a 2-week window, so that will be great for our employees to have that extra time to review their benefits options. We recently met with Alexander and Company to review our supplemental benefits that we offer, and we will continue to offer a wide array of benefits, the same benefits packages that we have, including the ones that we've added this past year with our long-term care. We'll continue to offer that. Our rates continue to be competitive, and we are looking, we only had 1 premium increase to our long-term disability. That was based on the claims that we had. But other than that, all of our other rates have remained the same and are locked in for the most part until 2019 or 2020. So we feel really good about that. We are looking at possibly changing carriers for a couple of our supplemental benefits that will add a little bit better service for us on those. So anything else I need to add about benefits? And then we have some job descriptions again this month. Can't go by without having a few job descriptions for you to review. 2 of these are revisions for your consideration, and those are the maintenance supervisor position, as well as the migrant contact family engagement position. And as I said, these are just revisions to update the job descriptions to reflect the current responsibilities of those roles. The other 2 additional job descriptions are to align those with our organizational chart. As you know, Mr. Patrick is retiring, and the Director of Administrative Services position is not on our new organizational chart. So those responsibilities have been divided and aligned with other positions that are on our organizational chart. So you have a Director of Facilities and Planning, which encompasses some of the responsibilities that Mr. Patrick currently performs, along with some of the long-range facilities planning that Mr. Hitzkes was performing. And so those responsibilities are combined into that role. And then the other is the Plant Services Coordinator position, which combines the remainder of Mr. Patrick's responsibilities with some of the responsibilities that Mr. Patton has been performing, so.
So those are for your review. We'll have these for approval Monday, but if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call, and then we can discuss. These are not replacements. There's no new positions. These are just reappointments. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Blankenship. That was quick, and we can follow up with these if you have any questions.
I'm trying to beat Mr. Nicholson's
Time.
I was on 15 seconds this evening, so.
I think we've got some great news to report on the financial side of things, and I do want to say, before Ms. Dodge and Ms. Bryant speak, I am very grateful for the work that they've done. Certainly, Mr. Hitzkus, as we've stated before, was a treasurer, but they have stepped up and done a phenomenal job. Ms. Bryant has done a great job in her role, and Ms. Dodge has just stepped right in and done some outstanding leadership with as a CFO, and I'm grateful to her, to both of them for that. But how about you get to share the news, since
I mean, you always got the fun stuff.
I know, so you get to share the good news. Highest SPLOST report we've seen in quite some time.
Yes, again, like the past several months, our SPLOST continues to increase, which is great news, and it's even better news considering the fact that it is the new SPLOST series, and we were a little concerned about the change in the distribution percentages between the 3 school districts, but it has not seemed to affect us negatively at all, and just continues to go up every month, and so it's a great thing to see. And it also significantly helps our 12-month average, which again, I love to point out that we were super excited when it hit the $500,000 mark, and now we're almost at 560. So it's a great thing to see, and especially with the facility needs that we are facing, if that continues, then that's a good trend and a good thing to help us with those needs. And we will take a quick look at the fund balance comparison. And again, like the past several months, we are maintaining a phenomenal fund balance, and we are trending still to stay the same expectation of not having a tan this year, which I tried to go back as far as I could to find when the last time was that we did not have a tan, and I went back 25 years and I couldn't find anything. So, I mean, it's just great news, and I mean, if we start next year that one step ahead, then that just helps us continue in that direction instead of trying to play catch up with paying that tan off before we do anything else with the tax revenue income.
And Ms. Dodge, I think we let them know as well that we've been conscientious, but we've not held back funds from our schools.
Yeah.
They've been able to spend their discretionary funds and buy what they need, and in years past we've had to hold back quite a bit until after tax
or even
revenue.
at this point in the year, you know,
Right.
we've released it, and then
That's
we've
right.
kind of frozen
Tighten
it,
it.
and we're not in a position where we have to do that.
Right.
And in fact, if you look at it and compare basically our change in fund balance at this time last year to this year, we're actually almost $100,000 better. So that's a great thing, because that includes TRS increases, salary increases, again, the release of a significant amount of the discretionary funds, technology purchases. So we're in a really good place, and I mean, still at the same time being conservative and trying to keep an eye on that fund balance and make sure that we spend wisely. So it looks really good. And if you want to look at the financial report, of course, again, I'll stress that the first couple of months of the year, because a lot of expenses are annual renewals, and so sometimes in some of the function areas it will throw it off and make it look a little higher than what it is for that time of year. But as we go on, that will even itself out, because that's again one-time expenses that we pay for the whole year. But overall, our expenditures are right in line where we should be for this point of the year. So everything is right now looking bright and rosy, and I like it. It makes my job so much easier.
That's right. Very good. Does the board have any questions or anything on any of the financials? Okay, very good.
That's good.
Excellent, and again, thanks to both of you for your leadership and the work you're doing there. One last item there, fundraising efforts. I want you to know that in light of the challenges we've had over the past few years, and we are in a much better place now than we were, we've asked schools to start submitting fundraiser, not really approval, but just to make us aware. If you don't already know this, our kids are selling a lot of stuff and they're participating in a lot of things. And so I'm going to be bringing to you in the next month or so the sort of almost like a report on a biannual basis, just what our kids are selling so that you have an idea. I think as a board, it's important for you to realize how many funds they're raising for supporting the, most of it is extracurricular, but some of it is not. And so, you know, we just want to make you aware of that. So I'll be bringing that to you and want you to know that we're trying to be very cognizant of getting potentially a handle on that. We've been able to return some funds to schools for transportation and, you know, for in terms of athletic events, we've picked that up. They're not having to pay quite as much, and so that is helpful. So. And then in terms of facilities, just 2 short updates. We are going to have some conversation at our advisory council this evening when we get over to Gordon Street with our parents about next steps in planning for facilities. We know that we've got some growth challenges that are coming. We expected that, and we're prepared to at least get a good plan in place and to start the work there. We'll discuss that. But I wanted to update you on a couple of things. Benton, been in great communication with the mayor. Their attorney asked for a 90-day due diligence. They're having structural engineers. Everything that has come back so far is in good condition, so we expect that we'll be able to finalize that by the end of October. So just wanted you to have that update. That's not forgotten. It's in the works. They did ask for the 90-day due diligence, and so we have honored that, certainly, and glad to do so. And then the only other item I wanted to share during the work session is the fact that Josh and I and team have worked on submitting a capital outlay application, which is in your packet for your review for West Jackson Middle School. The existing West Jackson Middle School, which is, by the way, 20 years old now, so is East Middle, 1997. They were built in 96 and opened in 97. So we've got some funds available at the state level. So Josh, do you want to speak to that at all in terms of timeline?
Well, the thought is it will be a summer project. We're trying to get roofing and air conditioning in, which can start a little sooner. We'll be looking at CM process within the next month or 2. Selecting a CM, hopefully be able to bid out in January so we get ahead of the game and have plenty of time to get contractors lined up. So it's a very short window for a big building. So trying to get it on that as quick as we possibly can.
Is that the only renovation you're looking at as far as the heating and air and the roof?
Well, we're not sure how far. Inside, there's going to be inside work as well. We're not sure to the extent of what it's going to be at.
Anything on the parking lot or the paving?
Yes,
I know
Yes,
that's
that
we
is
are looking
concern.
at parking lot.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that will be a biggie.
When they start on the drainage, or have they already?
Still working on that.
Still working.
We've done some work. You've prevented getting in the building.
Yes, the water's not coming in the building anymore. We're still working on that.
You all know this, the volume of activity that is on that site is just crazy.
Yeah.
It really is, but they've done it. Yeah, so I'm excited. We're looking at about 1.5 million that we'll get from the state if all goes well. It will cost obviously more than that to do all the renovations that we need, but once we get the final details back from the architects, and we'll bring that to you. But we do need your approval to apply for the capital outlay reimbursement. So if that, you will see that as an action item on Monday night, and that's what it's for, the DOE's capital outlay application. So that's in here for your review. And that is all we have for the work session. Of course, we have some exciting events I think that will be enjoyable for the advisory council. And we do need to have a short executive session. I will be at the board's wishes in terms of having I think it'd probably be best to have the executive session after the advisory council. If you're amenable to that, it would be helpful. It's not a big item, but I think out of respect for parents who are waiting on us at 7 o'clock, we should probably go. And I do want to apologize for having to transition. We advertised this for the board and at this central location, and so we needed to stick with our advertisement. So we'll transition to Gordon Street.
Great.
Your turn.
Well, very good.
All right.
This
We'll
session
see.
we can adjourn.
Session we will adjourn, and we'll meet at Gordon Street as soon as you get
15
there.
minutes, yeah.
I think it worked.